All right, welcome back, everybody. Episode 39 of the Punching Down podcast. Quick little note, anybody, this Saturday, December 12th, I mean, if you listen to this podcast and you happen to live in and around the Tampa area, Florida, this Saturday, I'm going to be doing this show with a bunch of YouTubers. It's Dick Masterson. It's called Road Rage Tampa. The guys from Revenge of the Sith. Some other people. Ryan Long's coming down. It's going to be fun. So in the event you're around there and you listen to this before then, December 12th, I think there's still some tickets left. So check it out. Exciting news today. People are starting to take the vaccine. The COVID vaccine. There's all these old people. I mean, that's the thing. If you're an old person too, like that's the sweet spot for the vaccine, because you're like, really, if you take the vaccine, you die, then you're like, whatever. I'm 90. It's not the end of the world, but I mean, it's literally the end of the world for that person. I like how I just said, I go, if you die, it's not the end of the world. You're like, I mean, in their, regards, it is quite literally the end of their world. But anyways, people are taking the vaccine, all these old people, which I guess we'll see. I mean, that's a thing too, because like I've been saying this for a while, but I'm like, I don't want to be the first person to be taking the vaccine. And I did a show. I can't remember if I spoke about this on the podcast last week or not. I don't think I did actually, because this happened right after. But I was doing this show in New York at the Stand, and there was a guy in the audience, and I was like talking to him, and he worked for AstraZeneca, they are one of the vaccine makers. And I was like, are you going to take the vaccine? And he's like, no. He's like, I'm not taking the vaccine. Granted, he was in sales. He was not a scientist. He was a salesman at, not doing a great job of selling the vaccine either. You're like, yeah, I'm not taking it. But anyways, he was like, yeah, I'm not taking it. He's like, the previously the record, because they, that's been brought up a lot, is like, the record for a vaccine production is like 4 years or something. That was like the previous record, and now they're having one in under a year, which apparently too, I read that like one of the vaccines, maybe the Pfizer one, is like they basically had the vaccine ready to go in March. Like basically this thing happened and they're like, okay, we have a vaccine ready to go. And then it was just testing up until this point to make sure it worked. But they fucking banged that thing out in like, feels like a weekend. They're like, all right, here you go. They're like, here's the problem. Here's the vaccine. And then, so anyways, people are taking it. So that is, I guess, somewhat of a positive. I still don't know how I feel about it, about the vaccine. Like, part of me is because, like, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, obviously, at all. Like, I'm not. But then the COVID vaccine is the one where it makes me like, yeah, but like maybe I'll like, maybe I want to wait. But then I mean, not like often or whatever, but there's now, I spoke about it a couple weeks ago on the podcast about a comedian I know whose friend died from COVID, and then a comedian I actually personally know from Western Canada is like super sick with COVID right now, like to the point where like his last Facebook status update from like, I don't know, maybe 2 hours ago was he's like, yeah, I'm going to the hospital, like it's really bad. So hopefully he's okay. And he's like, a pretty healthy guy in his 30s. So anyways, and I'm like, I don't want to get, even though I think I've had COVID, I'm just like, that'd be a bummer to get super sick. But then I'm like, I don't know. I'm literally thinking this out right now because I'm on the fence about it. Like, some people are like, yeah, I'll take the COVID vaccine. If I was older, I would take it for sure. Like, what do you got to lose? I mean, you're not going to become autistic when you're, because that's the one thing too, is like people are actually saying that like they bring up the autism thing for the vaccine, but you're like, you're not like, like 35-year-old men aren't like, I'm 36 years old. I'm not going to become autistic. I mean, I guess I kind of already am a bit from what some people have told me, but, I'm not like imagine your buddy just gets to the vaccine, he comes back, he's just completely autistic. And you're like, huh, okay. That's, at least you don't have COVID though. But yeah, so we'll see what's happening with the vaccines. Maybe we'll all be through this soon. New York, before I get to that, Giuliani has COVID. That was just announced. Giuliani has COVID, which I don't want to like I hope I don't wish ill on anybody. Like that was like one of the grossest things I found when Trump got COVID and everybody was like wishing him death. Like all these just people on a certain side were like, I hope this guy dies or whatever, which is like, that's just so gross. And obviously don't wish Giuliani died, but I feel like a lot of people like would really wake up, or, there would be a real change in sentiment if someone like important died like that, like someone in that thing. I mean, that would be what a whirlwind for Giuliani. Like he's just been from the fucking Four Seasons landscaping, and then the dye going down, and then if he just died, that'd be too much. But yeah, so just like the last wave of COVID too, or the first wave in March, I am leaving New York just in perfect timing. I'm leaving on Friday to go to Florida for a couple weeks, where it is fucking like, from all accounts, they are pretending like COVID does not exist down there. Like and then some people would be like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people who are like, it doesn't exist. It's a made up scam. But Cuomo today announced, today's Tuesday, he announced that, you'll be listening to this on Wednesday, but he said like, if the cases don't go down in the next 5 days, indoor dining in New York City is going to cease, which there's no scenario where cases are going to go down at all, because like the lag from the whole Thanksgiving thing is still like, they're still waiting on it. So anyways, shit's getting locked down in New York City in the next, on Monday. I think that's the actual date is Monday. Shit is going to be shut down. And all these people are like, why don't you just shut down now? I don't want them to do that, but I am selfish and only care about myself, i.e. being selfish. But yeah, there's a lot of weird things too. Like I talked about this last week where, so in Staten Island, they, this bar, like they declared themselves an autonomous zone. Like I was joking about it. They straight up wrote on the sidewalk, they go, we're an autonomous zone. The laws don't apply to us. And then they just had people straight up, just like regular, like just come in, no masks, just enjoy the pub, blah, blah, blah. And then they all got shut down. The owners got arrested. And they're just, obviously their livelihood's being taken away from them. And it's weird too in America, because like I'm not American, and I'm like, I'm not part of their system in the sense like, I don't even have a social security number. But like, it seems like the businesses are not really getting helped too much. Like they're getting like moderate, like, they were given something in March or April, and now they're like, they're talking about the stimulus bill nonstop. And I'm like, seems really bad. So it's understandable that businesses are, concerned. But so anyways, the Staten Island thing, was a huge deal, and all these people were protesting. It was a real thing. And then on SNL, Pete Davidson went on, and he basically was calling all the people who were protesting babies. And like, I mean, I understand, like, like a bar is, like, I don't know, like, a bar is not an essential thing. I think there may be a restaurant too, but like, you should be able to dine in and sit down on a table or whatever. But like, obviously a bar where people are getting drunk and standing is like not a good scenario, even though, again, in Florida, they have all these things, and you would expect based on that it would be like pure madness and just like bodies in the streets and morgue trucks and all that stuff. And from what I understand, it's not the case. So anyways, but everybody was giving Pete Davidson shit for saying that. And I mean, it is an interesting thing, because, a point was made where Pete Davidson's like, yeah, you're giving this speech at work. You're at work right now, so you're not affected. And then also, so SNL, when they came back, they didn't have a studio audience. And it was fucking brutal. The show was like so brutal to watch. Like the crowd is such an integral part of it, because you need the reaction. Otherwise, it's like just everything like bombs worse than it would otherwise. Like it's bad. So like, especially stuff that bombs. Like some stuff bombs is like, these are like mega bombs, like sketches. But so SNL found a loophole where they can just pay. Because if you don't know this, SNL, the way that they have an audience right now is that they pay them. They're essentially, I don't know if they're considered like actors, like if they're getting them from like central casting where they actually cast audience members. But you get, if you're in the audience for SNL right now, you are paid to be there. That's the only way that they're allowed to have an audience is by paying them. So, anyways, SNL is like skirting the rules because they need to continue going on because God knows we cannot live without Saturday Night Live, the hard hitting comedy on Saturday Night Live. And anyways, yeah. So, but I get the business thing. Like in L.A., there was a video that I saw that was pretty crazy actually. So there's this woman, it's a bar owner, and so L.A. is they're on the strictest shit right now, which it is so interesting. It's like LA's so locked down, and yet they're doing. And again, the thing too, because people are like, "Oh, there's this wave coming," and like it has to do with indoor dining, and like it's seeming like if you look at this, the graphs or the charts or whatever, like it seems like it's mostly just it's a seasonality thing where like viruses just pick up. When it gets colder, viruses just they get stronger or whatever. More people are getting them, like the flu. Stuff like that. But so LA, the mayor of LA just made it. He's like, they just put a whole like lockdown where basically he said like, you're not even allowed to go for a walk. Like you're not allowed to do any sort of travel, including like walking. Like he straight up said, you're not allowed to walk. It's insane. But so there's this video that went viral a few days ago of a bar owner in LA who's basically like super upset. She had this outdoor dining area. She had a restaurant in a parking lot. She had a restaurant with a parking lot. So she set up like, all these like tables outdoors or whatever, like space, distance, all that stuff, spent all this money like renovating so that like her business wouldn't shut down, to try and deal with this. And then they shut her down. They're just like, all these restaurants are closed. And then she comes in one day to work, and literally in the same parking lot are like rows and rows of fold up tables because there's a movie production going on, which is like, and the tables are like closer than her restaurant is, together. There's the volume, there's way more. And so she's basically like, what, just because they're making movies, like this is important, but like I'm not. And, the thing is, the movie industry, especially in California is powerful. And I'm sure they have a lot of influence, but you're like, yeah, that makes complete sense that she would be fucking pissed off. And I'm sure a lot of people are like that. Like I don't know what happened with the dude, Adamson barbecue guy in Canada, but, in Toronto that I was talking about, the barbecue dude, but they shut down his one place and, he set up some GoFundMe to pay for his legal bills. But I think I talked about this on, maybe on Fuckonomics, but basically what they're going to do with that kind of stuff is they're just going to like, charge him now and then they'll just deal with this in 5 years from now. Like the case will get settled in so long and they'll like violate your rights now and then they'll maybe apologize for it down the line. But at that point it'll be like, who cares? Who cares? Other news from Canada. We have some more news from Canada. This is pretty funny. So Canada just warned that conspiracy theorists could burn down 5G towers, claiming a link to COVID. So there was Canada's intelligence service, which is called CSIS. They basically like released a thing basically saying as companies begin, because Canada doesn't have 5G yet, I guess, because we're always the last to get everything. But it says as companies begin 5G infrastructure construction in earnest, extremists from across the IMV extremist landscape could engage in acts of arson and vandalism against that infrastructure. Which, I mean, it's been happening like all over. It says perhaps the most elaborate asserts that 5G was designed by governments to depopulate the world and is part of a broader conspiracy called Agenda 21 that imagines the United Nations is trying to establish a new world order. It's always the conspiracy theories. It's all about the new world order. They're always with the new world order stuff. And then anyways, but it says, yeah, so basically all these people who are worried about the new world order and 5G are going to be like sabotaging 5G. So they just have to like, they're on the lookout, which I feel like this was the story from March. Like they were doing this I remember in Europe, this was a big thing in March and like the 5G and like, was the cancer. I'm like, I can't believe this has persisted. Like, how does a conspiracy theory, like, you think conspiracy theories would lose steam, but I guess it's like, it's just powered by imagination, really, because there's no facts behind any of this stuff. So really, it's just like people just keep making shit up, and it's like, the more interesting imaginative things, I guess, just take better, and then they just keep going. But so anyways, it's going to be, if you're in Canada and you're waiting for 5G, it's probably going to be even longer because of the fucking nutballs. Actually, you know what? We have we're going to stick with Canada. We're going to stick with the Canada theme. This is pretty funny. And it's interesting too, because this is pretty funny, because I was talking about a couple weeks ago, I think it was a couple weeks ago, the Asian woman in Toronto who shut down that like bone broth place or whatever because it was like racist for selling bone broth and dumplings, and it was anyways. But so UBC, the University of British Columbia, had to apologize after they sent out a document in an email about which basically said, this is what it says. It says they sent out an email. I don't know who they sent. I'm trying to see who they sent it out to, which was it was sent by a residence advisor. So it was like basically a residence advisor, like the people who like police the residents or whatever. So it's probably like, someone who's younger, who's also in university. So anyways, they sent this out to people in their like residence, and it says yellow privilege. This is like actually sent out by someone who, again, you're like, I doubt this is an administrator. This is probably like some just dumb college kid. But it says yellow privilege. What is yellow privilege? One definition. Yellow privilege is comprised of very real advantages to East Asians, such as protections under the criminal law. Okay. I mean, are they protected for being Asian? I don't think so. An interesting observation by Chang, who wrote that, is that as East Asians, our privilege is based on the status of being oppressed, but also being the oppressor. Yeah, that's kind of Jews too. Welcome to the Jew Club, Asians. That's basically essentially what Jews are. People are like, you're the oppressor and the oppressed. How does that work? We can look at the minority model to better understand how these dynamics work below. So anyways, it was sent out, and then they had to basically retract it. And then so there was a Reddit thread. Someone said, this is victim blaming. I can understand why he wants to raise awareness towards Asians being racist to black people, but sending this out during a pandemic when Asians are getting attacked for this virus and Asian businesses are vandalized and closed down, let the community have a chance to recover first. By the way, the fact that you want to talk about yellow privilege, releasing a virus on the whole world, that's yellow privilege. No, I'm kidding. But it's like, what a ridiculous thing. That's like, people get so caught up in all this like social justice-y bullshit where they have to just keep just running loops. Like, these super like illogical loops. And then so anyways, it's talking about, it said the model. So citing academic research, the document says this is linked to the idea of a model minority. Asians in Canada are considered hardworking or smart and are successful from our innate talents. It has shaped how we view ourselves as the Asian community and of other minorities. Thus, it argues, leads to oppression because East Asians distance themselves from working class and poor Southeast Asians, but East Asians are also oppressed because they're subordinate to white people and are quiet, being not especially politically active in order to maintain their status as a model minority. And there's all this other bullshit, but basically what they're saying is, look, Asians, you've been demoted. You guys are, they can't straight up say they're white, but you're like, look, you got a little too successful for a minority. You're doing a little too well for a minority. So either tone down the success or you're fucking white now. Like, I just would love to sit down with the person who sent that out. And the thing is, I guess, like, the specifically, like, sending it out during a pandemic when Asians are being blamed for this shit is, like, probably optics-wise not ideal. That's insane. I never heard of really yellow. It's only a matter of time, though. They're like, you can't have this, like, finite. Like, if you have these privileged groups, it's like, you gotta change it up. You gotta switch it up. You gotta add people. I don't know. Can you get removed from a privileged group? Like if white people have like 5 centuries of just like really just on hard luck, will they get pulled out, or will they always, no matter what, be in that group? Anyways, I found that very funny. And then I was like, damn, I wish I knew about this yellow privilege thing. First off, isn't like the fact that you even say yellow, like, isn't that racist? Just that, like, didn't we like kind of move past that where we're like, you don't call Asian people yellow. Like that was like, I feel like we stopped doing that in like the 90s. And now we're like back to that. But then with this Asian woman who shut down the restaurant, and they'd be like, yeah, you have white privilege. It's like, yeah, well, you have fucking yellow privilege. I could just imagine the two of them in their face. It's like, you fucking white privileged piece of shit. You're like, yeah, well, you have yellow privilege. And they're just going back and forth like a bunch of morons. Oh yeah, this is an interesting. That's it. That's all from the wonderful country of Canada. This is a New York thing though, which this is one of the dumber things I've seen. I get it slightly, but you're like, this is just maybe I just because I order stuff from Amazon too often. I'm like, this isn't crazy, but so there's a new bill being proposed, and that New York City residents would have to pay a $3 surcharge on packages they ordered online, with the exception for medicine and food. So basically, everything you order online, if it gets shipped to an address in New York, you have to pay a $3 surcharge. Like, that is fucking insane. And the reason behind it is because they're like, we need to save the MTA, like the Mass Transit Authority, or like in the New York subway, basically is like fucked because of COVID. So then they're trying to figure out ways to fund it. And so they're just like, we're going to charge people every time you order something from Amazon. Like, you just have to pay $3. And like, the thing too is like, if you order stuff from Amazon, you know that like, especially if you have Amazon Prime, it's like you just order stuff when you need it. You don't like wait. Like, I remember when I used to live in Canada before Amazon Prime, I didn't have Prime or whatever, and so you'd have to you'd have to have a $35 minimum order, or you'd have to pay shipping. So then you would add a bunch of you throw something in the cart and like wait till you like need something else or whatever, if you if it wasn't a huge rush to get it. But now it's like, I need something that's $2, and I just like Prime, and I just order it. I mean, it's crazy because I'm like, doesn't it cost more than $2 to ship this? Like, you can't be. But anyways, now they're saying that it's going to cost $3, that is just. And they're saying it's for people to shop local, but like, yeah, I order, you order things where you're like, you can't get these things necessarily locally. Like, not everything can be purchased locally. And I know it's bad. Like, I know it's obviously there's a bad element to it because especially with COVID, where I do think about this sometimes, where like small businesses are doing worse relative to large businesses. And like, my habits have definitely changed in terms of like, I order more stuff on Amazon, but also it's like, it's cheaper. It's like, but then it's also like, it's going to fuck over all these small businesses. It is conflicting, but I think this is such an idiotic thing. I think the federal government should bail out the MTA, although the MTA, I was going to actually suggest that, and this is going to segue into the next thing I was going to talk about, but I was like, what if the New York subway just went public and you could just buy shares in it? But then I'm like, yeah, it loses probably so much money that would never work. Like, someone would buy it and you'd be like, yeah, your shares are worth basically nothing because it's not run particularly well. Although the trains in New York run well, the whole thing runs well. I mean, there's a few too many people getting pushed on the tracks. That's actually recently been like a big deal, where people keep getting pushed on the tracks by crazy people. Like, it's like, it got to the point where they had to like, de Blasio had to like the mayor had to send like extra people down in the subways just to watch out for people getting tossed. And there's another weird thing that I've never known happening in anywhere else, but New York is a thing that happens, and it happens on subways, is people cutting people with box cutters, like their face. Like, that's like, I know a comedian who that happened to. Like 10 years ago or something, it happened to him. He was like, some guy was like hassling some woman, but it's like it's an actual thing where people will just slice your fucking face. It's like a known thing where you'll just get your fucking face cut by people, and they just carry box cutters. Because I guess it's like, it's not lethal, but it's like, it sends a pretty decent message. You get your fucking face sliced open. It's insane. It's insane someone would just do that. Be like, I'm going to slice your stupid fucking face. But anyways, what I was saying about the public trading of the MTA. But so this was announced yesterday or 2 days ago. So water is obviously, it's a commodity. I guess, I don't know. You don't really I don't know. It's obviously a privilege. Like, I grew up in Canada. I live in New York. Like, I don't ever think about water. Like, water is not something I ever think about. I'm never concerned about having access to it, where I'm going to get it, nothing, how much it costs. I mean, it's like free. I don't think I pay for water. I don't pay for water. Like, the water that I get it's included in my rent. I don't know. It's like I don't pay for water. Water is just, water might as well be free to me. You want to come over to my house? Unlimited water. You can have as much water as you want. Like, fucking bring a bunch of, giant bladders over if you like. You can fill them up. I'll be more than glad to oblige you. But anyways, so they're starting to trade water future contracts. So it says they're going to start trading water contracts linked to a $1.1 billion California spot water market, according to Bloomberg, citing the Chicago-based CME Group, which is, I don't get why you need to buy water. I guess people is like, you sometimes need, I don't really get it. I guess it's for farmers and something. So it says, Bloomberg notes the contracts are based on the NASDAQ Veles California Water Index and will be financially settled as opposed to physical delivery of the resource. The index started 2 years ago and set a weekly benchmark spot price for California's water rights. Each contract size is equivalent to 10 acre feet of water, equal to approximately 3.26 million gallons. So you can never actually get the water. That's funny too, because it's like, I don't know if you remember during during the COVID, like March, April crash or whatever, and oil was trading for $- a barrel. Basically, so much oil had built up. Because the thing with oil futures is that you actually, when you buy like an oil futures contract for say like 100 barrels of oil, like you actually have to go, like, unless you sell the contract, you actually have to go pick up the barrel of oil. Like they're like, you go to like, it's like Cushing, Oklahoma or something. You straight up have to go like fucking with a truck and get 100 barrels of crude oil and then like, ship it and store it and all this stuff. So basically it was building up so much in March that it went negative, because it got to the point where they were like, look, we'll just pay you, like it was like $-40 a barrel. And basically what that meant is they were like, look, we just need to get rid of this stuff because there's nobody's like flying, nobody's driving, so there's so much extra oil that they're like, can you just come pick it up? And so, but all these people were like buying these $-40 contracts, being like, yeah, I just made $40, like sweet deal. It's like, I just literally made $40. But then you're like, no, you actually are obligated to go pick up this oil. And then because there was all these like Google searches of people being like, how do you like store oil? And it's actually like oil smells like really bad, and it's like super like dangerous to store if you don't have proper like ventilation. So all these people were trying to figure out, hey, can I like make some money on this? And you're like, no, but you'll likely die and get cancer. I guess you wouldn't die and get cancer. You get cancer and die. But just the idea of someone is like, just like some, like Robinhood trader starts trading water futures and then accidentally like buys like one contract. And then they're like, all right, where do you need us to deliver this 3.26 million gallons of water? And you're like, yeah, I guess that would be too much water to. But that's like the thing too, is like you're going to put like water in the hands of like these fucking financial engineers, like the people who like keep causing all these problems, like all these financial crises and like housing crisis. There's going to be something too where it's like water starts getting scarce, and then like, or they're going to do something, and then like they're going to make like some feat of financial engineering, make the cost of water go up, and then it's going to like get so expensive that it would be like scarce. And I don't know. This seems like a bad idea. I'm saying it right now. I'm coming out right now saying water futures, bad idea. Although it would be funny to like play a prank on somebody and just buy one water contract and then just ship it to their house. Be like, deal with this shit now. Okay, what else we got? Okay, this is funny. Remember when the CEO of the Bean Company, remember, that Goya Beans, the Bean Company, Goya, and then the dude was like friends with Trump, and he went to the White House, And then all these people were like, we're boycotting beans. It was the saddest boycott. People were like, we're boycotting beans. They're like, well, I guess now I'm not boycotting. We're not eating beans. And AOC was like, not eating beans anymore because the guy says he likes Trump. And all these people were like not eating beans. And then they just interviewed the dude, the CEO of the company. And then he kind of tongue-in-cheekly said, but I'm sure there's some truth to it, that they made AOC their employee of the month. Because the thing is with these boycotts is like the amount, like, it's like the people who do the boycotting, their will is weak. They want to perform. They want to like be publicly being like, hey, I'm on record. I'm boycotting. Like, check this out. But you're like, did you even eat beans before? Like, is there any sort of actual like action happening here? So anyways, he goes, he goes, I don't know if you, this is what he said. He goes, we still have to chat with AOC. I love her. Unanu. I don't know if that's pronounced. Continued. She was actually our employee of the month. I don't know if you know about this, but when she boycotted us, our sales actually increased 1,000%. So it's like you do these boycotts and then you can be like, well, I'm on the right side of history because I boycotted the guy who, was friendly with the president of the United States of America. That's the thing too. Now that Trump's gone and you're like, okay, so it was fine. We got through the presidency and everything is fine. Like, I guess not everything is fine, but COVID and whatnot. But all the people who are like, yeah, he has 270,000 deaths on his hands. Like, did you think there was a scenario where there's an alternate universe where there was 0 deaths from COVID in America? Because there's not. It's like maybe he has, he might legitimately have 20,000. I don't know. But, the sky's not falling. So that's something good. But anyways, these boycotts are always performative. They're all just bullshit. There's someone wants to be like, hey, I'm not eating fucking beans anymore. I'm going to go get a different brand of beans. And you're like, okay, it's fucking beans. I buy beans once a year probably. Here's an interesting, I've got a couple interesting, I guess, social justice-y kind of things. So this is an interesting thing because so this author, young adult author, her name is Jessica Cluess, was denounced as racist and dropped by agent for personal attacks against Lorena German. Okay, so basically what happened is Lorena German, she goes on Twitter, she goes, did y'all know that many of the classics in quotations, were written before the 1950s? Think of U.S. society before then and the values that shaped this nation afterwards. That is what is in those books. This is why we've got to switch it up. It ain't about being old, disrupt text. So basically what she's saying is all the classics are like, all the classic books don't represent modern day ideas, which are like, yes, obviously, I wouldn't expect them to because they're written in a different time. I feel that's obvious. Like, I don't even read that much, but I'm like, that kind of goes without being said. That like, yeah, they're classics. It's a different reality. Anyways, and so then this chick just, I guess Jessica Cluess saw the tweet and she goes, if you think Hawthorne was on the side of the judgmental Puritans in the Scarlet Letter, then you are an absolute idiot and should not have the title of educator in your Twitter bio. And then she goes, this anti-intellectual, anti-curiosity bullshit is poison, and I will stand here and scream that is sheer goddamn evil until my hair falls out. I do not care. She then said, if you think Upton St. Clair was on the side of the meatpacking industry, then you are a fool and should sit down and feel bad about yourself. No idea what that's in reference to. Yes, that embodiment of brutal subjugation and toxic masculinity. Walden, sit and spin on attack. Yes, remember their eyes were watching God and other literature of the extraordinary Harlem Renaissance? I guess not, dick. And then she goes, what's interesting to me is how I present, this is the Lorena German. She goes, what's interesting to me is how I present a position on an academic point, and yet this 55%er, I don't know what that means, decides to attack me personally over and over again. Sounds like I struck a Confederate nerve. Any of my white tea friends want to jump in and get your girl? She's big mad. And then basically, so she said these things. Nothing that was said was racist in any way. I don't Like, I mean, for me, I'm like, these are basically, like, if these were friendly people, you'd be like, yeah, these are a bunch of nerds, like, having an argument about, like, classic literature. Like, there's books, I haven't read one of these books. Like, I'm not that I'm, like, a gauge of anything in that sense, but I'm like, I haven't read any of these books, but they're just, like, arguing, like, they're just bickering over these books. They have different positions. Maybe she's like being a bitch, but she didn't say anything racist. But then everybody, because she said it to somebody, a white person was basically mean. Like, that was the extent of this happened. The biggest thing she was maybe guilty of was like being mean on Twitter. But because she was mean on Twitter to someone who is not white and she's white, everybody's like, oh, that's racist now, which is like, you're basically like, I don't know, like, you can't just make everybody a victim just because, like, you can't just say something's racist when it's not. And so anyways, her agent came out with a statement. He goes, I thank everyone who took it upon themselves to bring the recent tweets of my client, Jessica Cluess, to my attention. I also apologize for taking so long to publicly respond, but I felt obligated to speak directly with my client and then gather my thoughts before making any sort of public statement. Let me be clear. Jessica's behavior yesterday, in which she made a series of condescending and personal attacks on a Dominican-American woman educator, was deeply problematic and inexcusable. It is yet another example of the white privilege and systemic power imbalance that pervades the public industry in this country. I care very much for Jessica, and I also hold her accountable for her actions. And then basically, blah, 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 she's fired. So he fired. He fucking threw her under the bus, which is, and again, it's interesting now because I was talking about the yellow privilege. So it's like, if she said this exact thing to an Asian woman, it would have been fine. It would just been like, okay, you guys are bickering over this thing. But what does it have to do with the fact that she's a Dominican American woman? It's like they're having an argument about, like, and then the thing too is like the worst are the people who come out in like the comments, like, seriously, just absolutely like disgusting people. Like, all these people would go, like, all these people were like, oh, you're not going to drop her? Like, you cannot decry white supremacy and profit off of it. And then someone was like, what else? Anything else? Committing to hard conversations is the bare minimum. What policies? What practice? Like, the fact that, like, you have to do all this stuff, like, you can't disagree with someone who's, like, of a different race if you're white. Otherwise, you're just being racist. Like, it's so fucking crazy. Like, the people even believe this. It seems like such a step back. And then, like, here's another one. Brooks, please consider that you need to acknowledge Jessica's behavior in a more frank way. She was racist, period. Not misguided, racist. And you need to tell us exactly what you're doing to hold her accountable. Like, all these people, you're like, yeah, I want this person's life ruined because she had a disagreement, and at best she was maybe a little mean. Like she never said anything about her race. Like, how, it's so crazy. How can you, like, be just like, people just gladly brand you as racist, but you're like, the people who are doing it, like, they don't even have anything vested in it. Like, it's not even necessarily like they disagree. They just want to, like, jump in on this and be like, hey, we're pointing out racists, and look at us defeating these racists. And then what was and then the chick obviously apologized. She goes, this is an apology for Lorena German and all who follow me, including my readers, educators, and my publishers. I'm ready to apologize for a thread I tweeted yesterday. I take full responsibility for my unprovoked anger towards Lorena German and the impact of my words on her and all who read them. I neither expect nor will ask for anyone's forgiveness. Like, what forgiveness do you need? She goes, I want to acknowledge the pain I caused and to apologize sincerely. What pain? You just, like, you had a fucking disagreement? Man, people are so fucking sensitive. And I know it's so lame to just, like, even say, oh my God, people are so fucking sensitive these days. But, like, imagine just, like, someone disagrees with you and you're like, oh, you're fucking, like, I mean, it's obviously not the same, but it is kind of the same. If someone just, like, I have a disagreement with them, I go, oh, you're an anti-Semite, aren't you? And they're like, what? What does this have to do with anything? I go, well, I'm Jewish and you're disagreeing with me, so you're an anti-Semite. And they're like, what are you talking about? I didn't even know you were Jewish. Like, what does that have to do with anything? I'm like, it doesn't matter. You can resign now or we'll get you fired. And the crazy thing too is because she's like, this chick is like, oh, I'm so sorry. But she's not. Like, I guarantee you, if you get her in a room privately, she'll be like, yeah, I don't think I did anything wrong at all. I don't think I did anything wrong, and I'm only apologizing to save my livelihood because all these strangers on the internet literally want to rob me of it. Okay, last thing, and then we are gonna wrap this bad boy up. So I saw this. This is interesting. So it's from the Atlantic magazine website. I guess it's not a magazine anymore. Maybe it is. I don't know. It's this woman. Her name is Tiffany. And then, so she did this thing. It's called The Secret Internet of TERFS. If you don't know what TERFs are, they are trans exclusionary radical feminists. And so basically it's about how there was a Reddit, there's a subreddit called Gender Critical, which is a bunch of feminists who basically would be considered, I mean, I guess like TERFs are essentially, they just believe in biology. Like that's the main thing that makes you a TERF is you're like, I feel like women are women and trans women are trans women, but trans women aren't women. Women are women. I know it's all confusing. And the thing is, like, I'm pretty sure if you secretly polled, like, if you anonymously polled the population, like, that's what most people believe. Like, I think most people would agree. They go, yeah, a woman's a woman, a trans woman is a woman. And essentially that's what they're saying. But so she does this whole article of like, it's like one of those articles where it's like this was the equivalent that she used to be like, oh, we infiltrated the KKK. And they like, it's honestly like how they talk about it is like, they're like, and they find like this like one woman and they explain how like she got radicalized by like feminism and then finally like kept going down like the path of feminism until she became like a TERF or whatever. And she got in this like subreddit. And, and they talk about all this stuff like, but it's like so crazy. And they talk about, oh, like, it's just like, it's such a small percentage of feminists who believe it. And like, I'm like, I don't think so. I'd honestly think it's like a large percentage, especially if you factor in like, my mom, like she used to go to these like feminist meeting things, like in the 90s and 80s, in like, this women's group thing where it's like all women and they like did their thing. I like those older feminists. I could almost guarantee you 95% of them are like, yeah, like they're not exclusionary in the sense, because the thing exclusionary is like, they're trying to, it's the exclusionary sense is, they're like, yeah, maybe trans women shouldn't like compete against biological women in sports, for example. Like, it's that kind of stuff that makes you like a TERF, quote unquote, and you're like, this is pretty like widely held beliefs. Like obviously people, can't share them because people are trying to ruin your life over them. Like the idea that there's like, they had to remove a subreddit because people are like, yeah, I believe that biology is a thing and maybe trans women shouldn't do mixed martial arts against biological women. But so I didn't read this whole thing. I'm going to admit it. I didn't read the whole thing because it's fucking long. It is long as shit. This must be like, I don't know, 2,000 words. But like basically, like a lot of these like radical feminist theories that she talks about that are like, oh, these are these underground like horrible things, or things like, maybe it's like if a guy is like, this would be like, one of the things that they reference is like, say a dude's a rapist and then he's in prison with men and then he goes, okay, I'm a woman now, transfer me to a prison with women, and there's like all these women in this prison who are like survivors of domestic abuse, and then this guy just like, grows out his hair and puts on lipstick, and they're supposed to be like, okay, well, yeah, you can't say anything because otherwise you're like a TERF. Is the whole thing, I skimmed the article, but the whole thing is crazy because like it's this huge gotcha, and how it's like it makes it out where like all these like ideas are just so underground when you're like, no, I'm like, I guarantee you these are pretty mainstream. Like it's basically the stuff that J.K. Rowling saying, like all the stuff you're like, most people believe this. I think if you get it down, there's a small very vocal minority who obviously doesn't believe this, and they're dictating this to the point where they're getting subreddits banned. But anyways, you can read it yourself if you want. It's called The Secret Internet of TERFs. I wouldn't read it. It's so fucking long. It was interesting though. Someone in the Twitter comments, they They posted a thing. It was from a lesbian subreddit, and said it's called "On Dating Trans Women and Transphobia," and it says things which are not transphobic, not being interested in or not dating a specific woman who happens to be trans, not being interested in or not dating a specific woman who does not have the genitalia you prefer, not being interested in or not dating a specific woman who just doesn't catch your eye. So these things are not transphobic. Things which are transphobic, not being interested in or not dating a specific woman because she is trans, which I feel that's again, I'm like, maybe I am a horrible bigot, but I feel like 99% of the population is how they feel. They're like, yeah, I probably wouldn't date someone who's trans. I mean, I'm sure it's not the case for everybody, but any guy I know is not like dating a person like yeah, that is like, that is legit. I know people who are like, yeah, like the idea that someone could be like, yeah, I won't date a woman who's over 180 pounds. I just won't do it. And you go, okay, that's fair. And you go, I also won't date trans people. You're like, whoa. You can't say that. You're like, yeah. Just these are my preferences. You go, no, you can't say that you won't date a woman specifically because she's trans. You can't say you won't date a woman specifically because she's fat, which is an interesting thing. So, and then this whole thing, because I guess like it's talking about how there's all these weird stuff. There's like other common fallacies. I've never been attracted to a trans woman, therefore trans women aren't attractive to me. Besides the obvious selection bias, the idea that trans women look like X is where this statement goes horribly awry. Trans women look like this and thousands of other beautiful women. Couldn't agree more. I've definitely seen some trans women who go, well, that's way hotter than on many biological women I've seen. Like, that's true. But when you find out, again, most guys, when you find out they're trans, you're going to be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to appreciate it, but yeah, not for me. If you are attracted to women, you're attracted to some trans women. I mean, physically, yes, but to the point where you're like, okay, we're going to actually like have sex. Then you go, no. And then here's another one goes, ooh, penis, and says, you aren't into penile. I get it. And for what it's worth, neither am I. To be fair, many trans women who carry that particular anatomical burden are not big fans of it either. So you have that in common. Imagine that you go, well, you know what? At least they hate it too. I don't love sucking her dick, but at least she doesn't like having it. So I guess we can find common ground there. So it's like you can't rule out trans women. I don't even want it. It's just so... This thing's so long and just none of it makes any sense. Like you're basically just, it's the whole thing where like, I get it. They're trying to like, it would be super, like I know trans people, it would be very difficult to be trans. I couldn't imagine like, and I've seen it happen where people are like, in their 30s or something. They're like, okay, I'm trans now. And you're like, yeah, that would be a fucking living hell. That would be a nightmare to go have to like come out and like change your whole life. That sucks. I get it. And I get that they're trying to like, make it a more normal thing. But then like, you start with like, oh, we're going to make this normal thing. And then you're like, okay, well, then we're going to just be like, you're a bad person if you won't date a trans person. It's insane. But that's where we're at. Okay, that has been the episode. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening, for watching on YouTube, all that stuff. I may or may not. So, again, if you're in Tampa, Saturday night, just Google Road Rage, Dick Masterson. Tampa, Florida. I'm going to stick around in Florida for a couple weeks to enjoy the sunshine. There may not be, I haven't decided yet. There might be an episode next week, or maybe I'm going to take 2 weeks off. We shall see. Anyways, thanks very much, everybody. Until next time, bye-bye.